Coming up on today's episode of An Echo of Glory, we dissect the draw at Brentford, look ahead to Saturday's match against Manchester United, and we talk to Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust Vice Chair and Lead on Ticketing, Anthoulla. Welcome to another episode of An Echo of Glory. Joining me today is Anthoulla, Vice Chair of the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust and also Lead Ticketing for the Trust, and Jake Sanders is back.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Welcome, debut, Anthoulla.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really good to be here.
Delighted to have you on, and we are going to talk about one of the main reasons you're here, which is the supporters' protest before the Man United game. We'll do all of that, but we're going to start where like we normally do with the club news. My Beth England update. She didn't play this morning as England beat Australia in the World Cup semi-final. Maybe she'll play in the final. I thought she was going to bring her on actually at 1-1 or 2-1 to hold things up, but England scored 2 quick goals and they didn't need to bring her on. But we do have a player in the World Cup final, so that's nice.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah. And going back to the weekend, or to last weekend, the youth teams, a mixed bag. The under-21s won 5-0 at Man City, which is
Champions Man City,
which is an absolute rollick. I want to say Rogering, can you say that? Yeah. Hammering. But the under-18s lost 4-0 to Aston Villa. So a mixed bag for the youth teams, but a good start for the 21s. Since we last recorded, Harry Kane's gone. I remember John last week said that the club always bury bad news on a Friday night, and it nearly came on a Friday night. Pretty much everything was done and dusted, and then it sort of was all confirmed on a Saturday. Anthoulla, did you always believe he was going to go, or did you think the later it got, he was going to stay?
I think the later it got, I started getting hope again that he'd stay. At the beginning of the summer, I was very much resigned to him leaving. Yeah. But I thought nearer the end, especially after that deadline that was set, I didn't really think he would leave, and I was absolutely devastated. And I still stand by. I don't think he should have been sold.
What do you think about the timing? You think that timing is that the main gripe for you?
I think the main gripe for me is the timing. I think selling him the day before, 2 days before we're about to start our season is not great. It's not great for Ange. It's not great for the team to lose such a big character and a big player for Spurs. Yeah. I know, no one's bigger than the team, but I think the timing of it really doesn't sit right with me. I
think that's really important. No one's bigger than the team. I actually think Kane maybe, not through his own style or character, became bigger than the team. And I think Ange, who says he was prepared for him to leave and he knew he was leaving, I'm not so sure about that. But I think for Ange to move on without him, I'm not sure how upset he'll be.
I felt like the result, I know it was only a draw against Brentford, and the performance was important. Because if we'd lost that game 2 or 3-0, it would have all been about Kane. Yeah. So I'm not saying, I know a draw at Brentford's not, it's only a draw, but it felt positive, and it felt like, it was a door closing. I'm not saying that we've solved the Kane issue yet, but it just felt like, we've got a positive performance under Ange, and we can sort of move on quickly. Yeah. Although I obviously completely disagree that, selling you, but it was on the eve of the Premier League season, which is just bonkers.
Would you have been happy to sell him for 95 odd million quid in June or July?
No. But I'd rather have done it in June than...
Yeah.
See, I think August. If you were planning to sell him, it should have been done early, and a replacement should have been in.
Well, you just used the word plan. I don't think there is one.
That's the thing, isn't it? I think if we had sold him early in the season, in the summer transfer window, and we had already brought in a replacement for him, I think it would be very difficult to argue with that, because they would have been forward thinking, a plan there. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like that's the case, and I think that's the main gripe.
So do you disagree when Ange says we were prepared for this?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I fully believe that. I think obviously he has to protect the team and he has to protect his players, and we were about to go into a very important game. We had to start on the front foot with the season. I'm very happy with how we performed. Yeah. So I think, what was he going to say? Oh no, we weren't planning to him. Yeah,
there's clearly no plan there. I mean, Chelsea have signed about 3 players since we sold Kane, and we've not replaced someone they knew, or they say they knew was going. But anyway. On to Saturday, actually. Kane playing in that Super Cup. I'm happy for Harry Kane to win everything. He can do what he wants now. I was not ready for him to win on Saturday, because all those tweets were lined up and all those stories were lined up. He goes away and 24 hours later he's won a trophy. So I'm absolutely delighted. He's not listening anyway, but sorry, Harry, that you didn't win a trophy.
Yeah, I'm sure most Spurs fans would agree. They hope he goes and wins everything. I know, we've got, a few negative thoughts towards Bayern Munich, but I'm sure most people would happily see him go and win the Champions League, score 50 goals. But it was just too soon, and it was typical us. The day that his signing was confirmed, how does that even happen to any other club that they've got a trophy, waiting?
Well, it's Bayern Munich. They moved the goalpost so he could play.
Yeah, but it just wouldn't happen to any. It was almost felt like they waited to do it on that day on purpose. We didn't need to deal with. I saw loads of stuff on Twitter about, he has to wait. Whereas now, when that happens, it will probably be the Bundesliga in May.
Yeah,
we've moved on and we can handle it.
Yeah, you happy for him not to win, or would you have been, great for Harry?
At that point, I was just so angry that I just it didn't bother me. Okay. I think I wouldn't have liked to see the headlines, and I don't think that would have helped before we played against Brentford. I think that was the key thing for me. Yeah. But, I think I'm still stunned how the Bundesliga is more attractive than the Premier League, and how I
think it's just a case he wants to win some easy titles. He's never won any. We discussed it a couple of weeks ago. I just think he's never had that moment where he goes up and lifts a trophy and has that moment with his teammates that can lie in bed at night thinking about that time he lifted a trophy. He's never had it, and there is nowhere easier, really, maybe PSG, to do that.
How much of a shame is that, though?
Yeah.
It's such a shame.
Yeah, we could go on and on about what we should have won and what we haven't won. But let's move on to Sunday. Debuts for the goalkeeper. We will come on to him. Vicario, Udogie. You're laughing already, Jay. Van der Veen, Udogie, and Maddison, and what felt like a debut for Yves Bissouma, who we'll also talk about. Jake, you watched the game. Did you say where did you say you watched it?
2-year-old's birthday party.
How'd you get away with that?
Pulled some strings. First game, actually. If it wasn't the first game, maybe I would have been out of luck. But
yeah. Thoughts overall?
It was positive. I felt like when I was watching the game, I felt like we were better than we actually were. When I watched back Match of the Day and highlights for the second half, I felt like we were massively in control and really deserved to win the game, but maybe we didn't really create that many chances. I
feel like that. You watch a game sometimes, and then you're nervous, you're at the game, you're watching it, you get home and you think, actually, we're all right there.
But having said that, I feel like we created some really, really good chances that didn't necessarily test the keeper. There was that Richarlison one that came to him, 10 yards out, and there was a Son volley, and there was a nice intricate bit of play where Royale played it back to Son, and his touch was bad. There was a Son volley. I think if you play that game, 10 times, you probably win 6 or 7 of them based on the second half. Apart from maybe a half penalty shout, they didn't really get close to scoring. I felt like
they had a moment when Vicario punch went out and Damsgaard hit it straight back to him.
Felt like we were in control. There was Bissouma and Maddison just made such a difference. It felt like about an hour into that game we had them penned back, and it felt like when we had Poch and we just sat and obviously we didn't break them down, but it felt like that, which we haven't seen for a while. I heard what was it, 70% possession? Is that our highest ever?
That since 2003, yeah.
Yep.
And away from home,
which says a lot.
But teams are going to do that to us, right? They're going to let us have the ball. Anthoulla, you said you caught the highlights. You were working.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was at work. I tried to catch as much as I could. From what I saw and from what I've read and heard, it sounds like it was a very positive performance, and it's good to work on. It's nice to actually see some attacking football and something enjoyable to get behind. I'm really impressed with the midfield, and I was really disappointed with the midfield last year. So that's a big positive for me.
Most of that is Maddison and also Bissouma, who I sort of quipped that he made his debut. It felt like that.
Yeah, it did. I think it was absolutely criminal that he hadn't been playing, and the treatment of him, or however he was coached beforehand, you didn't see that player. So now it's absolutely amazing to see him perform to his ability. Yeah. And Maddison, when we signed him, I was actually quite excited because we know what he can do. We know what he can do for us, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he grows in the team during the season. It
wouldn't be this pod if I didn't have some concerns about something. Concerns that if we do lose Maddison for any number of games, we lack someone. I mean, Lo Celso is a good player.
Kulusevski, I reckon, could be a...
Maybe we'll come to that sort of wide situation at the moment. But listen, he's playing, he's fit at the moment, pulls all the strings. Let's start at the very back at Vicario, Jake. First thing you said when you came into the studio was, you're not having him.
Look, he might well end up being good, but I can't see how any Spurs fan watched that game on Sunday and didn't feel that he was a bag of nerves. It even felt like things that didn't need to be nervous. It was every kick. It was,
But he would be nervous. It's his first game in the Premier League.
No, I agree. I completely agree. And I know that, there was a few playing out from the back. That's what Ange wants him to do. He wants him to make those risky passes to, cut out the first press. Yeah. And it did work well. And to be honest, we spoke a few weeks ago and said he needs to get past the first 3 or 4 games without making a mistake. And he didn't make a mistake. So... thought that was quite important. Maybe potentially could have saved the second goal, but I guess it took a deflection.
I think
it probably looked a bit uglier than it did, but I compared him to De Gea a few weeks ago, and he's going to need time. As you say, you'd be shocked if he wasn't nervous. So,
all right, so jury's out on him to start with, but Udogie, Van der Veen, good debuts. Tim Sherwood said Van der Veen looked wooden. I mean, they said that about Zidane once, so maybe he'll turn out to be a good player. I thought he had a good debut. But going forward, Richarlison, I actually think Richarlison did okay. He's not Harry Kane. We're going to keep saying that you can't replace Harry Kane. What do we do with the front three? Because Son stood on the touchline all afternoon, and he's not dangerous there. Richarlison, he's not going to get you 30 Premier League goals. And Kulusevski, who I thought was better, but he's not the 21-22 Kulusevski that we saw at the end of that season when we chased Arsenal down. Is that a worry for you?
Yeah, it is a worry for me, and it just brings back to the point of if you're going to sell a player that scores you 30 goals a season, you should bring in a replacement, because as much as I like Richarlison, he is not Harry Kane, and he is not going to get you that. He needs 2 or 3 chances to score a goal at the moment, and that needs improving if we're going to be anywhere near we were last year with scoring goals with Harry Kane in the side. I don't know if it's a case of us needing something a little bit extra up top, or whether it just needs time to bed those three up the top because they haven't played together long enough. There's a gaping big hole where Harry Kane would have filled it, and maybe they're still sort of looking for that and thinking about that, and actually they just might need time to settle and find a way of working together. I don't know, but it's a concern going forward that if we're going to have chances like the other day with Richarlison and he's not scoring those goals, it's going to be a concern because it's going to cost us points.
Yeah, we scored a goal from a set piece, which is great delivery from Madison, and we'll have that all season. And Emerson Royale popped up with one from 25 yards. It's not going to happen every week, so we possibly need a little bit more in those forward positions.
On Richarlison, Ange was saying about he felt like Kane was inevitable all summer. Did Richarlison know that this was going to happen? Because you look at Richarlison and Kane going or staying was the difference between Richarlison potentially starting 30 league games and a couple. Did he know in that week that he was going to be? Because it looked like he was just sort of thrown in at the last minute.
We didn't play against Shakhtar because he was supposedly injured.
He hardly featured in pre-season. He didn't start a game.
Well, that's
maybe
the thing.
Barcelona.
This is why I don't think they thought Kane was going, because Kane had to play against Shakhtar because Richarlison was injured. Richarlison obviously played against Barcelona and did okay. It's a bit of a concern for me, I think. Well, let's talk about transfers, players' ins and outs. I think we need certainly another winger and another forward. Let's talk about this guy from Belgium, Gift Orban. Some reports, whether you believe them or not, that it's 30 million is too much, which surprises me when we just coined 90-odd million quid for Kane.
Pay the damn price.
Pay the damn price, pay the money, Levy. Anywhere else you think we're short?
We need a centre back still, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Especially with this, ongoing dire situation potentially. Whether it's Saudi or somewhere else, getting left out of a squad was quite telling. I know Ange said it's in his plans, but it felt quite significant.
For me, it's Sanchez over Dyer because of his pace. If you're going to play so high, Sanchez did a couple of Sanchez things on Sunday, but his recovery is good, whereas Dyer cannot do that. If you're going to stand on the halfway line when you're attacking, I don't think you can have Eric Dyer in your team.
No, the way we play right now, we need fast centre-backs.
Yeah. So we think a new centre-half and a couple of forwards. Going out, talk now of Lloris leaving. The squad is so bloated, and it's also bloated with non-homegrown players. Lloris, Reguilon have to go, and I think Tanganga will probably go. And there's talk that we've got to get some out before we get some in. Do you believe that?
Yeah, I guess so. There's Ndombele still there. There's a couple of youngsters. Yeah. But it goes back to what we've said years ago. It echoes how bad we've been in the transfer market, because no club struggle to. Arsenal have done a little bit, but no club struggle to sell players like we do. We can't sell anyone.
Everyone's going to Saudi apart from our players.
We've loaned Joe Rodon. What did he cost? 12 mil. We've loaned him to Leeds Championship. Harry Winks. What did we get? 9 mil, 10 mil, or something like that. We've Reguilon and Ndombele is the same every summer. Lo Celso would probably be the same, although he's now sticking around. We've let Lucas go, Lloris. Okay, Lazio's quite a decent move, but we're not going to get much other than a few quid out of him. It's not, Sanchez is probably the only player in our squad that we've got any value, and he's, impressed in the last few weeks. Whether that's putting him in the shop window, but there's not that much value in those squad players at all. I mean, and Ndombele, you can't get rid of him.
I think he's someone who might leave at the back end of the window. Maybe the Saudis, their window stays open longer.
Yeah.
Of course it does. So maybe he'll go there. But look, we've got a game on Saturday, and Anthoulla, one of the reasons we got you in here, not the only reason, we got you in here was to talk about the planned protest on Saturday before the game against Man United, all about the ticket price rises that the club have put on the fans this season. Just give us an update. Well, firstly, what is the protest for? Just to educate everybody who might not know, and a refresher for everybody. What is the protest for? What's happening on Saturday? And is there an update on the movement and the support and everything?
Sure. So just to give a bit of background on it, the club decided to raise matchday ticketing pricing. They did this without consulting the trust or the fan advisory board. We did have a meeting with the club in April, so before the season ended, and asked specifically about matchday pricing. They said no decisions had been made, and we asked to be kept in the loop about such decisions we told them, we would oppose any rises. The next we heard was on the day of the announcement in the morning that they were going to be raising the prices.
And this was when? Sorry?
When it went out, or it was... testing my memory.
It was June
time,
right? Wasn't it?
Right.
It was about June.
Time.
It was before the season started, and also before it was also after membership renewal. So the membership prices had gone up. People renewed, and then the match day prices were announced that they were increasing. But also when they announced it, they didn't actually announce that the match day prices had increased. They hid it in a statement that was it was a statement that basically was just to announce the on sale dates for the season, and you had to then click through on the different categories to then find the map of pricing. Nowhere in that piece of comms or that statement said, just to let the fans know we have raised prices. They didn't give a justification for it to the fans, nothing. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so shady, and another, it just adds another layer to why we are doing this. Because if you're going to do that, you should owe it to the fans to be respectful and actually justify why you're doing these things. So then after that, the fan advisory board had their first meeting. So it was announced on the Friday. And then on the Monday was the first ever fan advisory board meeting. So way to start on the front foot there. So they had their meeting, and unanimously every member of that fan advisory board came out against the matchday ticket prices. Donna Cullen then said we will review it as a board, but then they came out and said we reviewed it, but we're still raising them. Their justification for that was operational costs, energy prices, inflation, and they are still absorbing the majority of the cost of the stadium.
Do you have any sympathy with them there? Just playing devil's advocate?
So I'm by no means an energy price expert, but I do have a few friends in that industry. Shout out to Keith if he's listening, who has said that...
If he's not, why not?
Yeah.
Get him to listen.
That energy prices actually have gone down recently, and he believes that there's no way that the club wouldn't have made an opportunity to make sure that their prices were also reduced. So I'm not quite sure on that. We also know from just speaking to various fan groups who have better relationships with their clubs that actually matchday ticket revenue is a very small proportion of the club's total revenue that comes through the club. So we did some crunching of numbers, and actually this increase, so bearing in mind members tickets, there's probably only around 7,000 that go on sale per game, because the majority is season ticket holders and corporate areas. So 7,000 tickets per game, 19 games, you're looking at about £2.5 million that the club will be making on that. That's peanuts. We did the maths on it. So if you look at the June 2022 financial figures of the club's revenue, matchday revenue, it would be 2.4% of their matchday revenue, and that matchday revenue isn't just tickets, that's also catering, so we're probably overestimating it as well, because that's food and beverage sales as well. And then total revenue would be 0.6% of their total revenue, that 2.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it like that, you know.
Yeah.
You can see why people are very angry about this.
So I want to make the point here that we would not be just jumping to a demonstration of protest without means. We would try other channels, we would try and speak to them, but we've exhausted those channels. They've not consulted the trust. We've put our position forward. They've gone against that. The fan advisory board went and tried. They've gone against that. So it's a case of we just sit and take it, and we'll probably be looking at season ticket rises next season.
Because I read a couple of the bullet points from a statement. One of the things you want is a guarantee of no price increases for the 2024-25 season.
Yes.
Can you sense this is something that is going to happen if you don't try and make sure it doesn't?
Yes, so I'm concerned because they wanted to raise season ticket prices last season.
Can we just say that this is the worst season we've had for 15 years as well?
Yes, you can, absolutely.
Like, of all times to do it. I mean, is that relevant?
I'm trying to think in my head, is it okay to say to Levy and Cullen, we're shit?
No, but maybe they doing it at the end of 2022 wouldn't have been the end of the world with Champions League, but we've just come 8th, we're not in Europe.
I think it's very reasonable.
Slightly significant, isn't it?
I think it's very reasonable to say that it could have been a way to show a gesture of goodwill to the fans for their loyalty.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We sold out every home and away game again last
It might not be relevant to the club at the timing of we're shit now, but to the fans, certainly it's another reason to think, why am I parting with more money? I'm getting less football. Okay, you've got to pay for Champions League games. I'm getting potentially a worse product for more money.
Because there must have been someone that had some sort of conversation, in March, April, May, and thought, we're going to do... Oh, wait a minute, it's not going so well on the pitch. Maybe we'll at least hold off.
See, what they would have looked at is what price can we hit that we're going to sell out tickets.
The thing is, it doesn't matter. Every Spurs game will be a sellout, whatever.
Is this a problem that you have, that the ground will still sell out?
And this is the issue, and this is why the line is stop exploiting loyalty, because fans are very loyal to their club. We are a unique business. Football is a unique business because of that relationship with fans. And we will keep going until we absolutely cannot afford to go.
Yeah. And plenty of people can't afford to go.
And plenty of people can't afford to go. We put out a call for people to email us in if they've been affected by the price increases. We've had over 100 emails, and we released our first campaign tile yesterday, but we released a story from someone saying they've been priced out from going and they can't take their family
was
anymore.
Was this the Reverend on Twitter today, the guy Dang?
No, this was our campaign tile on Joel, where we've put a message to the club.
Okay. But his story won't be unique.
Exactly.
There's plenty of people.
There's plenty, and it was sad to read. The growing sort of general census is that people can't afford to take their families. People are looking at non-league clubs to take their families. A lot of people are taking out season tickets at local clubs because they're better priced and also have a better family feeling. Yeah. So another concern is you're pricing out the next generation of Spurs fans. Yeah. Where are they coming from, and what impact is this going to have on our atmosphere, on our fan base? It's sad, and at this stage, we need to act, because it's not just ticket price increases. There's been a massive erosion in concessionary prices as well. So people can't access their senior concessions at the moment. They're restricting access. They're limiting the amount of concessions per block. We don't know exactly the dynamics of that. We've asked a lot of questions and tried to challenge it, but we're still getting quite obtuse answers.
To explain, if you're in a concessionary position where you could pay concessionary, it's not to your seat. You would have to move to a seat that is a concessionary seat, and potentially give up sitting where you've sat for 30 years with your mates.
So when we moved to the new ground, they said that anywhere under £1,200 for your season ticket is eligible for concessionary pricing. So we've always said that concessions should always be attached to the person and not to the seat. Yeah. So we've always pushed actually concessions should be widely available, not just in under 1,200. But those 1,200 blocks are basically the whole of the south, the whole of the north, and then bits of the east and west in the corner, basically. Yeah. So just for clarification for people. But over the last 2 years, we've suspected a bit of foul play, where we've had emails from people who said they're in a concessionary area, but they're not able to access their concessionary rate when they've turned 65. So after a lot of poking and prodding this year, we finally got to the bottom of it, whereby they've said that they're subject to availability because they want to balance the different match day tickets. So season ticket and match day pricing, juniors, seniors, young adult prices. They want to balance it. However they do that, I don't know, and we want to find out in each block. So to answer your question, if you sit in a concessionary area and you're about to turn 65, you may not get a discount because there might already be whatever that limit is might have been reached.
It sounds like a protest, and it's good to have a protest, and we'll come on again into what is going to happen on Saturday. Fan power, we hope, works. We've seen it work at other clubs. We've seen it work with away ticket prices. I can't imagine you're going to get everything that you want, and maybe you think that too. But there seems to be some wiggle room, certainly on this concession situation, that the club can do.
Yes, and we implore them to do it. You know, we don't want to be standing outside the stadium shouting and doing this, but we have to, because it's for the future of our fan base. It's for the people that have been priced out, and it's just to stop exploiting loyalty of our fans, really.
We've moved a long way from football as the working man's game. You know, we have to moved on from that. But I can't afford to take my kid every week at the moment. I mean, I went with my dad and my uncles when I was a kid, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people who got their love for whatever club they support through going every week. My son's only going to fall in love with Tottenham if I take him more often than not. And I think the club have to act on this. So what is the plan on Saturday?
So we are congregating outside, basically opposite the ticket office on the high road by the M Cafe. At 3:45, it will be for an hour, so 4:45. We will have banners, we have flags, we have flyers, we've got badges. They look great. If you're on Twitter, go to our page, you'll see them. They're awesome. And I've ordered a megaphone. We are going for it. We will basically be there.
The club know about this?
Oh, the club know about this. They've been probably checking on our channels. They know this is happening, absolutely. And we will be basically getting the message across, and everyone is welcome to do so. And it has to stay to this clear messaging, because we don't want to dilute the messaging. It's stop exploiting loyalty and stop ticket price rises. It's very important we stick to this message, because we don't want to dilute the message and basically undermine the cause. And just for people, just for clarification, what our 3 asks are and what this campaign is trying to achieve is 1, a full reversal of the matchday ticket price increases. 2, a commitment to genuine fan consultation across all ticketing strategies, including concessionary areas. And 3, no increases for the following 24-25 season. And
do you expect this will happen the next home game, which I think is not till after the international break? What will happen after Monday? Will you go to the club and say, look, we had X thousand people out there, or will you wait for the club to come to you? How does that then work? Yeah, so I think this is a conversation we have to have as a whole board. We want to see, first of all, what the flavour is, how many people turn up, what the flavour is. Hopefully that from across socials and stuff, we've had a lot of support from it. A lot of fan movements have gotten behind this. Spurs song sheets, Spurs, the THSC flags, shout out to them, Rots, Return of the Shelf. Been amazing. Loads of podcasts have been supporting this as well. And we're hoping there's a lot of flavour for it. But we want to see the flavour for it. We want to see how much movement we can get. And we will be prepared to step up action, because this isn't going to go away. We're not prepared to fold and let this go, because what happens next is your season ticket prices will go up. There's no guarantee matchday prices won't go up again. There's no guarantee that what happens when they reach their max of concessions in every single block. Yeah. Something needs to change. They need to start listening, and this is why we've hit this point. Are you prepared to chain yourself to the goalpost? No, because that's against the law. Okay, we do not break the law. Fine. But as you say, it's got to be a single issue, and I'm going to pop along early. Whether I'm going to scream and shout at and get him, I don't know. But that's for
You're
the
person.
person.
Be on the megaphone, aren't you?
I'm have a go on the megaphone.
I'll hand you the megaphone.
Just shout about Echo of Glory. Like, subscribe to Echo of Glory. I'll go there, and it's a cause that I can get behind. I'm not so sure I can get behind the Levy out thing. Not to say I love Daniel Levy, but for me, it's a different situation. And like you said, it's got to be a single issue. And for me, it can't carry on into the ground. I heard from a few people who were there on Sunday, there was no chanting about Levy. There was a lot less Levy out stuff, which was great. They got behind the players. That may have come from the players went over to the fans just before kickoff, and I think at that point the club were like, the fans were like, we just got to get behind.
That'll be a great idea at a home game, by the way. If they do that, go to the South Stand. That would be really ramp it up again.
Yeah, I think
in a
so.
big game as
we're
well.
We're all in this together. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
So, if you go to Spans Song Sheet's Twitter page, massive shout out to the fan movement, the Atmosphere fan groups, because it's been incredible. They put out a timeline of events for the day. It's the protest from 3:45, and then they will be moving crowds over to the Park Lane Plaza for around 4:40, 4:45 to get ramp up support for Ange, Spurs songs, positivity. Then they'll move into the ground, into the marketplace, and then everyone will be seated for 5:15 for the TIFO. And I think that's the way to go. We don't want to take any negativity into the first game for Ange. It's not fair on him.
No.
We need to support the team. But that doesn't take away from the fact that we need to be against the regime that is currently being displayed with exploiting fans when it comes to ticket prices, because it's just not fair. And we need to strike that balance.
Yeah. it's an issue we can all get behind. Jake, will you be there Saturday?
I will be there. I'm going to try and get there a bit earlier now, to be honest.
I think it's really interesting.
I've got a packed out day, but I just want to see. I'm interested to see.
I'm interested, and I said I really hope it doesn't turn into this sort of Levy out.
It's going to be not. There'll be a few, people will look at it as an opportunity, but you can't control everyone.
I think the reason why this has gathered so much momentum is because it's a single issue that everyone can get behind and that it resonates. So I think the people that are going to be turning up will be for that message. So, okay, if we get a few people that are there for Levy, ENIC out, we'll politely tell them to move away. This is not what this is about. Yeah. The ENIC Levy out are going to have their process a bit earlier, I think, because they don't want to take away from our message, which is very nice of them. And I'm hoping that's what happens. We don't want any of that messaging because it just dilutes the cause. Yeah. It's not.
It becomes hooliganism slightly if people start letting off flares and all this violence. It becomes a bit. Yeah, so lose the message.
Our key message here is that it's a respectful, peaceful protest. There's ways of getting your messaging across without resulting to bad behaviour and disruptive behaviour. And I'm pretty sure that this is actually why we've had such momentum behind it, because it has a plan, it's a structure, it's respectful, and it's not unreasonable. It wouldn't have resonated with so many people if it was completely outrageous.
Well, I hope it goes well and it continues, and I hope the club listen. But we do have a game to play on Saturday.
Yes, we do.
We have a pretty poor record against Man United, certainly at home in recent years. My concern is, whilst Brentford are a decent side, and it is really a really difficult place to go, they're not as slick on the counter as United might be. I don't know, I'm just worried that we're going to have this season of letting in a lot of goals and scoring a lot of goals, but we can't score. Are we going to have to score 3 goals to win every week?
No, but United, I know it's a different game and it's always different at Old Trafford, but that last hour on Monday has to give everyone at Spurs encouragement.
They were poor.
I mean, if you can get players like Son and Kulusevski and Maddison into them, final third areas, there's a good chance, especially if Martinez is out there. They had no midfield. Casemiro was on his own, so
yeah. Confident Saturday?
I'm feeling really, really positive. I just love Ange. I think I love his vibe.
Everyone's got Ange fever still.
Massive. It's probably because he's Greek as well. So I'm just I relate. But he's brilliant. I actually think he would back our protest based on his book, by the way.
He's spoken about ticket prices.
He's very much
Celtic. He did.
He's very much. The fans are so key at the club, and he could become potentially. I'm not going to say he's going to come out and take your megaphone off you and shout it, but he may silently or behind the scenes talk to the club and go, these lot are not happy and it's not helping me on the pitch. They're not happy. I'm not saying that's going to make Levy cut the ticket prices straight away, but you have to listen to the manager as well. Certainly if what's going out on the pitch is not being helped by the atmosphere around the club. I
think the performance against Brentford really made me feel positive about football again, which is great. So I'm looking forward to seeing us play. I don't feel like we're going to lose. I don't feel like we're going to lose. Like we don't feel like we're going to win. I think we're in for a long season.
We're going to
enjoy every game. And actually, isn't that what football's about?
It'll keep you up.
I've always said, and I will stick to it, that as long as I've enjoyed what I've watched and that the team have tried, I don't care what the result is.
No, I totally get that. Certainly with the last 5 years.
But after a while, that will.
I get it. But if you're playing good, exciting football,
wins will come.
Yes, exactly. It will naturally come, and I really believe that. So I think just seeing how this team develop under a new structure and a new way forward with an actual coach that can actually coach, I think is really exciting. So I'm not going to be negative about it at all because we don't know what we're going to get. So I'm really excited about it.
I thought you were going to say something there.
No, on Ange. I like the way he dealt with the Romero situation on Saturday.
Good point.
I saw a few people talking about it, and obviously that's a very serious, we saw what happened with Vertonghen against Ajax a few years ago, but it summed him up as a person. He feels like he's in control of everything, not just tactics and signings. This is a serious. Nothing was more important on Saturday than Romero's health. Yeah. The result aside and whatever. And he dealt with it brilliantly, as what was his quote? It's irrelevant what the player wants.
So as someone from a medical background, I fully am on board and respect that. I think it sets such a big example for everyone in the Premier League. Because
he clearly wasn't right.
Yeah, and what he said afterwards, bang on. at that stage, you listen to the medical professionals,
Correct.
you listen to the medical team.
Yeah.
It's so right, and I was so impressed with it.
You could see when Romero
and the
headed
fact it was Romero as well.
Yes.
The only no one wanted to see him go off for anything, but at the end of the day, it's more important than football, his health. So, and he should be back for Saturday.
Yeah, if it's not officially a concussion sub, Spurs will do their own tests.
Yeah, I don't think it was an official concussion.
No,
sub,
because there was a bit of a dispute on the touchline.
He said on social media, I'm fine.
So. Yeah, of course, but it's not up to him. If
he would have been fine to play on though.
He wasn't. He clearly wasn't right after he headed it in.
Yeah.
No.
Great ball in from Maddison though. We'll see a lot more of that. Right, great to get your thoughts on Saturday. But what we're going to do now, as we always do, is get the perspective from the other side and speak to someone who knows all about the goings-on at Old Trafford. Delighted to be joined by broadcaster Ian Irving. Ian, thank you for joining us. You were at Old Trafford on Monday night, a 1-0 win for United, a controversial one with that VAR decision at the end. What was the mood in the ground and after the game amongst the fans following that performance?
Yeah, it wasn't a brilliant start for Manchester United. There's no question about that. It didn't feel fluid. It didn't feel flowing. It didn't look, as the match wore on, like an opening was coming, and it came in the end from a pretty unlikely source in Rafael Varane, who I don't think scored in the Premier League at all last season. The fans were fairly sort of patient as the first half wore on, but there was a little bit of frustration because Wolves were cutting through the middle of midfield time after time after time in a way that sort of James Maddison and co, I'm sure, would be looking at, the two rampaging fullbacks as well, and thinking that's an area to exploit. It's definitely something that United will need to look at. But in terms of a start, it's much better than last year. United didn't have a positive goal difference in the Premier League till the end of October, so at least they've ticked that box a lot sooner this time around. But yeah, not a great start, but a winning start. And if you spoke to the players, which I did after the game, and Erik ten Hag, they just seemed more happy with the result, really, rather than the performance.
You talk about Wolves cutting United open at will. Wolves had 23 shots in the game, the second most at Old Trafford by an opposing team since Opta data began in 2003. Lisandro Martinez went off at half-time. Was that because of the yellow card, or was there an injury? I think Rafa Varane said potentially there's an injury there. Is there a latest on that?
Yeah, I think it was a precautionary change, was how it was described at the time. Lisandro Martinez, I think, had an ankle knock, which I don't know when he sustained that in the first half, but I think it was a combination of the two things, taking him off because there was the booking there already, and like I say, because the Wolves players were almost running at will through the middle, and he was having to be one of the key men to put out the fires, I think already being on a booking. And he was quite rash in that first half as well. There wasn't really any need to pick up the booking that he did pick up. There's a couple of other challenges. I mean, he's got form for sort of flying in, but usually he's pretty accurate with that. It's more of a rousing cheer than a wince when he slides in for the home fans. So I think it was a bit of both. I'd be surprised if it was serious enough to keep him out of the Spurs game, but obviously keep your eye on Ten Hag's press conference on Friday. He tends to be fairly honest with his assessment. So if he rules Martinez out, I think that would mean he would be missing, where if he says he's got a chance, he'll probably play. Right. That sounds like it's obvious, but it's not always for Premier League managers, trust me.
Ian, on Saturday, we're obviously going to see two teams that are a bit short of a striker, with obviously Spurs, Richarlison and Rashford, doesn't look like a natural number 9. In terms of Kane, how close did United come to making it happen this year? There's been a lot of talk, and it seemed like he was the most likely, United were the most likely Premier League club if he was going to stay in England.
Yeah, I agree. There was definitely an interest from United. There's no question about that. As to how close they came, I'm not sure it was ever that close, really. If you'd asked Erik ten Hag, as far as I understand, to pick a forward at the start of the summer to sign, it would have been Harry Kane. However, the finances involved, and I understand the sort of issues there's been with Manchester United negotiating with Tottenham in the past. They didn't really want to enter into a situation like City a few years ago, like even United had with De Jong last season, whereby they spend the entire summer trying to make a deal happen and end up with nothing. Their target, and they've done it largely, was to get the business done pretty swiftly, to try and have things in place by the tour, by pre-season, so the manager could work on things, and also certainly by the start of the Premier League season. The Rasmus Højlund situation's not ideal. He won't play at the weekend. He's still managing a back problem, which probably will keep him out for another couple of weeks yet. So it's likely to be Marcus Rashford through the middle unless Ten Hag changes things around drastically. But yeah, on Harry Kane, it wasn't something that United ever looked close to doing. As soon as Bayern Munich started their serious negotiations and there was a to and fro with that, it never felt like United were ready to enter the fray. Towards the end of the window, if it was still dragging on, or maybe the end of last week with Kane setting that deadline supposedly of having it done by the start of the Premier League season, part of me thought maybe they would come in at the last minute once a deal had been agreed and try and match it. But I mean, obviously the Højlund transfer is a lot of money, especially for a young player with not vast amounts of experience, but the wages will be absolutely at the opposite end of the scale. Yeah. So an upfront fee might be similar, but that deal over the years is going to be a lot cheaper for United with the constraints that they're working under.
Yeah.
Hi, Ian. I was just wondering, so you probably might have heard that the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust were holding a demonstration outside the ground for the Man United game on ticket prices. Yeah. I just wondered what the fan movement was like at Man United, how it's all going with the Glazers out, and what challenges that might be they're facing.
Yeah, I mean, Old Trafford's used to having fans protest now, aren't they? With United's owners, there was another protest organised before the game against Wolves the other night. They've got a sit-in protest, which the 1958 group, which is the supporters group, which is behind a lot of the fans' protests against the Glazer ownership in recent times. They've got a sit-in protest after the Nottingham Forest game. They've tried not entering the stadium for the first sort of section of the match. Usually tying that in with how long the Glazers have owned the club for, but it's not been that successful visually for them, whereas they feel that having a sitting protest after the game where fans simply don't leave the stadium at the end of the match, it has the potential to be a bit more visual and a bit more successful. But it's certainly not died down. The strategic review, as United have called it, is still ongoing. There's been months and months now of speculation about a potential takeover, about what's happening next, and fans are still waiting. And obviously, as long as the Glazer family are in charge of Manchester United, however that is termed, however that looks in percentages and whatever else, there's a big number, I should say, of Manchester United fans who will show their anger towards that. I guess the vast majority of fans from the voting that I've seen at different times in the polls that have been taken online, in fanzines, whatever it's been, are against the Glazer ownership. But, a good number of them now who attend matches, and that's important, are willing to show that every single time they attend a game at Old Trafford.
Ian, just going back to Saturday's game itself, Spurs yet to beat United at the new stadium. I think they last beat them at Wembley. How do you see the game going?
Yeah, 2018, is it, Blaney? Yeah. Is that the last time Spurs beat Manchester United in a home game?
Remember him, Christian Eriksen?
Yeah, I think he might have scored after a few seconds or something. I seem to remember that match. Yeah. United need to sort out midfield. I don't think there's any question about that. The biggest issue that they had against Wolves was Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes pressing very high, particularly Mason Mount, and just leaving a huge hole for Casemiro to try and clean up in the middle. And he's very good, but he's not that good. He can't cover sort of 50 yards, square yards or whatever it would be on his own. And obviously watching the Spurs-Brentford game, the success that you had with Emerson Royal on one side and Destiny Udogie on the other, that's obviously going to be a big issue for United to try and combat. In pre-season, he moved the shape around a little bit, excuse me, in midfield, where he had Mason Mount pushed out wide and added an extra man. Now, throughout pre-season, it was one of the younger players, Kobe Manu, who played in that role. He's out injured, so there's no way that he'll come into it. But I wonder if he adds a Christian Eriksen or a Scott McTominay into the middle to try and beef up that area, get it a little bit more congested. So players like the two I've mentioned, like James Maddison, even Yves Bissouma, I'm sure could make the most of that, or Richarlison dropping deep, or the wingers coming inside. That's definitely a key part for United. I mean, just watching that Brentford game, you guys were spoiled, weren't you? I was licking my lips watching it myself. I thought it was a fantastic
It's weird
first
to see
half.
us attacking. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you'll know this anyway, I know, because of your persuasion, but to have 4 players making their debuts, which is the most in a game for Spurs in the Premier League history, and a new manager as well, and a totally new style and shape, just felt very exciting. And to face it, there's a part of me which is a bit fearful because they look so good going forward, and there's another part of me which feels quite happy. I mean, if United play Rashford wide and Garnacho wide and try and get those runs in behind, there's definitely opportunities there. So
yeah, I mean,
it's going to be fascinating.
Rashford's goal last season was a very quick ball on the break. I think Bruno to Rashford, and before we know it was 2-0. I think the midfield's probably what we're as fans happiest with at the moment. So I think that's where the game might be won or lost. Can I just get a quick prediction from you?
I think it'll be a draw.
Yeah.
I feel like the way that the two teams started the season, neither of them are perfect. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think we'd probably sit on the fence.
Yeah, I think we'd probably take that. Ian, brilliant to get your thoughts and talk to you about the game and what's going on at Old Trafford.
Johnny.
Cheers, Ian.
Thank you.
Great to talk to Ian. You mentioned, Jake, midfielder problem for United. Ian mentioned it there. Ten Hag might tweak this, he might tweak that. I don't sense, certainly in the short term, Ange is going to tweak anything with Tottenham. We're going to go out and play the same way each week. And like I said before, that worries me a little bit, but he's got to get his method across, and for me, he'll probably pick the same team.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I was a bit concerned about Skip. I don't think he's technically good enough in that system, but I don't think he'll make any change. I don't think, there's no obvious change to make unless Romero's, not fit enough to play. I don't see him bringing in Sarr, Bentancur's, too far off. There's no other concerns. Maybe potentially Porro in a home game. Don't really need Royale, but I doubt he's.
Do you think he's good enough on the ball to play in that sort of midfield position, Porro?
Yeah. I think he could, but I don't think he'd change it.
I
think he'd keep
Royale's definitely not good enough, but he did all right on Sunday.
I think he did all right, and I'm usually his biggest critic, so yeah.
All right, listen, prediction for Sunday. You got it right last week. I actually predicted. I actually can't remember.
You said 2-1, I suppose.
Did I predict us to win?
Yeah, I said you hate. I said you hate predicting us to win, and you said yeah.
I think we had Jay Harris from the Brentford, the Athletic correspondent. I think he said a score draw.
You said 1-0.
You said exactly 2-2. Can't remember. John would have said a win. John
said 3-1.
Yeah, John's given us 38 wins this season. Go on then.
2-2.
3-2 plus.
It's going to be a lot of that, isn't there?
We're going to concede.
To be fair, I feel like we've had generally high-scoring games against United because we've had traditionally good attacks in the last 10 years, and neither of us had that great defensive. So, it was 2-2 in the last game.
The way we're playing now, I think we're going to concede just as much as we score. It's just who scores the most at the moment.
Yeah, it makes you pine for that Harry Kane bloke.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Done with talking about Harry Kane. Episode 2 into the new season. Just before we go, just a reminder.
You didn't do your prediction.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do us.
2-2.
Okay.
2-2.
That's going to be the most common one, isn't it? It has to be.
I said 2-2
2-2. Okay. Just a quick reminder of what's happening Saturday and where people can find you on social media and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So we will be at the Tottenham ground opposite the ticket office on the High Road at 3:45 p.m. That's when we're starting, but we will be there early with banners. You will not miss us at all, and we'll be handing out flyers and annoying people on the street, definitely. To find us on socials, our Twitter is @THSTofficial. It's the same across Facebook as well if you're on there, and if you want to email us for any information at all, any suggestions, any ideas you have and want to get involved, it's info@thstofficial.com. If you cannot make the protest and you still want to get behind us, please just spread the message across all socials. #stop exploiting loyalty, #stop ticket price rises. Really push that message. Send it to the club, send it to their sponsors, get it across every platform you can. But for those that can make it, really hope we see you there. And even if you're not fully on board, if you're on the fence or you don't agree at all, please just pop in. We're happy to speak to you. We're happy to get those opinions as well, because it's really important. And
you might even get to meet Jake Sanders, and who wouldn't want to do that? An echo of glory is Jake Sanders, as you're now known. Anthoulla, Jake, thank you so much for coming on. Good luck on Saturday with the cause everybody can get behind, and of course good luck to the team on Saturday as they probably let in 2 goals. Can we score more? We will be back again next week, and up the Spurs.